Gareth Icke, welcome to my channel. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me, mate. It's
How are
nice.
you?
I'm all right. Yeah, can't complain. I'm busy, 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 but there was once a time when we were sort of shouting into the abyss in terms of what was going on. So the fact that people are now suddenly, and not suddenly to be fair, over the last few years, really starting to go, hang on a minute. That's a good thing. So obviously I shouldn't, complain about being busy. It means you're getting out to people, which is what's important at the minute.
Better than the alternative, isn't it? I'd rather be busy than quiet.
Oh, same. Yeah, that's the thing. I think also like with everything that's happened over the last 5 years, lots of people lots of people have tried to double down and put the fingers in their ears. I get that, but a lot of people have accepted that actually maybe that whilst they're not aware of everything, they're aware enough to know that the world isn't what they thought it was. And so there's more people out there now that I think just want to know what's going on. They want informed consent in terms of what's being done to them by their
Yeah.
by their governments. And so that's where people like me and you and others around us that have been speaking about what's going on. Obviously people want to hear your take on stuff. So that's amazing. Like I say, yeah, it's good. It's just tiring because the kids are.
Yeah.
I've got young kids too, mate. So I'll sleep when I'm dead. That's for sure.
Been there. I'm waiting for grandchildren now. My eldest is 30 next year, and it just makes me feel so old.
You don't look old enough to have a 30-year-old kid.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I definitely owe you a drink. So, how old were you? I mean, obviously, I grew up in a house with someone who was massively into conspiracy theories. And as you know, I told you before that my dad was reading, your dad's books. And was it really your dad that got you into it? Or do you think that, because obviously you grew up surrounded by it, but do you think it's inbuilt in some people, the quest for really uncovering what's going on?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I've always had an authority problem. Like that's just I came out like that. And it's funny because like my youngest particularly, she's 4 and she has inherited that like to the nth degree. So I think that kind of side of it is probably just innate within you or not. But yeah, I mean, being exposed to stuff and being around an environment where you questioned everything. I think back to my days in, maybe not so much primary school, but middle school certainly. I was questioning and having rows with the teachers regularly of because I wouldn't let them get away with stuff. Like they just present stuff as fact that they didn't know. They were reading from a textbook themselves. And so my annoying hand would go up, and would as politely as possible say that's nonsense. And you'd have back and forth. But it's funny because now when I see some of my old teachers, I mean, a lot of them have passed on, obviously, but when I do see some of the ones that were younger when I was at school, we get on like a house on fire now, and that's funny because they would have hated me at the time.
Yeah, I bet.
Um, but then even then, when I think about it, when I say like not primary school, my mum's got it on VHS, but I wrote a letter to President Gorbachev, right? When I was in the third year, I would have been second or third year of primary school. So how old's that? Let me try and work that out. I'd be about 7. And it was when there was the famine in Ethiopia, so sort of 1988, 1989. And yeah, I wrote a letter to President Gorbachev basically asking him to stop selling arms to these Ethiopian rebels or whatever it was. I don't know why. But it got on the news, and I had to read this letter out on the local news. My mum's got it on VHS somewhere. Yeah, so I guess I've always been involved in this kind of stuff, even as a wee kid.
Did,
Although, yeah, but naive as hell. Obviously, back then, I think I called President Gorbachev a man of peace, and now I look at it, and I don't think any of them are. But I was trying to appeal to his ego. I think even at 7 years old.
I during the pandemic, I wrote to Kim Jong Un, and I wrote to him and asked him if everything I had read and everything I'd seen was true, and I would like to come over because you could apply. I don't know if you still can. You could apply to go to North Korea and on a guided tour, and I think it was quite protected, so
Right.
you couldn't wander off the beaten track. But I said that I'm not sure I believe everything I've been told, and I would like to come over. And I wrote this letter. It was this long letter, and it ended up being returned to me. It had reached South Korea, and it had been opened and read, and then returned to me. So,
Wow.
and I thought that was bizarre because I thought it would just go straight there. I didn't know it'd be intercepted at some point. So I then applied online on their website and never heard anything back. But I just got this feeling. I've always had this feeling that we're being lied to, and I think that
Yeah, I know. As random as this is, Stuart Pearce went there. You know the footballer, the
yeah,
ex-England left back. He was on Talksport, as he is from time to time, and they were talking about the fact he'd been off for 2 weeks because he'd been away, and he'd been to North Korea. And I remember the other presenters going, "What?" And he was like, "Yeah." Didn't really go into great detail, but he went there, so maybe that's what he did. He applied. I mean, I'd love to go just based on the same thing. I want to know. I want to know what's going on from my own experience, from my own eyes, not just because I'm told something. Um, yeah, I think it'd be interesting to go there. Actually, I bet it's not like they say it is because nothing ever is it?
no, no, I agree. I think that I think that everything we're told is a lie, and I think that they often tell us things because they want to. And I researched this with Tartaria that the Jesuits were kind of trying to make Russia look like it was backward, and always in favour of the British Empire ultimately and their friends, so they can be perceived as being a superior race, a superior breed of people, and nothing's changed. Nothing at all has changed. Did you come into much sort of flack at school? Did you have people,
Oh
you
yeah,
know, I can
oh
imagine that
yeah,
must,
yeah. I mean, I'll be honest with you. Like, I'm not going to be woe as me because there's kids out there that were abused and assaulted and all sorts. And on that level, I had a perfect upbringing. I had problems as a kid in terms of like health problems. Like I had a bone wasting disease and stuff like that. So I had like a prosthetic hip and I've had 8 surgeries in my life, so I had that sort of side of it, which wasn't great. But then it was weird because Dad was really famous, but he was famous as being a TV presenter presenting the sport, and so you were popular in that sense. Like everyone's dad would come to the door when they dropped the kid off that was coming around to hang out. When they'd normally wait in the car, and obviously these were the days before camera phones and stuff like that. So people would ask for autographs or to shake his hand wherever you went, and then suddenly overnight it was like people were just shouting abuse and laughing. And I remember being a kid thinking, what's going on? And and then the media jumped on it and they would follow me to school and they offered money to parents of my friends to say bad stuff about our family. It was all just really they followed us once to Greece on holiday and like we had to move hotels. It's all bizarre sort of thing. And yeah, I got a fair bit of stick. I mean, I was lucky in one sense, which was that I was in the football team and I was a good footballer, to be fair. So I was in the centre of excellence at Portsmouth Football Club at the time. So, I was playing for the decent team in the league. I was representing the Isle of Wight. I was at Portsmouth. I was put forward to England schoolboy trials. And when you're that age, the footballers are the popular ones, aren't they?
yeah,
Basically. So I think the lads that probably would have given me the most flack were also my teammates and therefore didn't. So I probably got away with it a bit. I imagine if I'd have just been the sort of geeky kid in the corner playing Warhammer, that they would have had me for breakfast. Um, but I still got a fair bit of stick. But when I look back at it now, particularly COVID was perfect for it actually, because I was getting messages from people that wanted to speak out that couldn't or didn't feel like they could. They'd lose their job or the mother-in-law would have the nuts, or they basically just didn't feel confident enough to, or whatever. Um, and they were saying, but we're with you and all this kind of stuff. And they were feeding me some information, and that was quite good in terms of exposing stuff, particularly from within, the medical establishment. But um, a couple of people asked, why? How can you get up there and just say that kind of stuff and not be worried? Like, you're not worried that like people are going to go for you and attack you? And obviously, the Times did a big hit piece on me and attacked my family and um, child services. Someone reported me to child services trying to have the kids taken off me, and I had all this kind of bollocks for my dangerous anti-vax views. Um, and I just thought to myself, do you know what? This isn't bothering me. I mean, the stuff with the child services that made me angry, but the time stuff that didn't make me. I wasn't really bothered about being insulted and all this sort of stuff. And then it just dawned on me that actually all that crap that I went through as a kid, that was my basic training. Really, that was me. That was me arriving at Sandhurst. Do you know what I mean? And being put through my paces physically and all that kind of stuff to take you to a point where you're ready to fight. Um, and so I think once you've had that much abuse, you genuinely don't care what people think. Like if you believe what you say to be true and you can back it up, or you believe you can back it up to your best of your ability or whatever, um, then say it. and let the chips fall where they may. You know, that's my attitude. And I think I had that beat into me really. Like you have conversations, I've had conversations all the time with people, and they over the years, even when you're a kid, and they say, "Well, I don't care what people think," and you look at them, and you go, mm, "You do, you do when it comes down to it." But whereas for me, you know, like I care what my mum thinks and my friend, I care what my wife and my kids think. Like I'm not one of those people that's just going to go fishing for trouble. But if I believe something to be true, I'll say it. And I think that that's probably a lot of that is probably down to the fact that you took so much crap as a kid that you kind of know that actually, yeah, they're going to attack me and go for me, but they'll be going for someone else tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so actually, you know, you weigh it up, don't you? You go, okay, well, I can fit inside the box, but I have to edit who I am. Therefore, a bit of me dies, so I can go in the
Mm.
box, and that's fine. The box might be comfortable, you know. I can sit and watch the telly and whatever, and have a pint with my friends and not talk about anything, you know, controversial. But I die inside. Or I go, no, I am going to say it. And if you call me names or have a go at me or call me a granny killer or dangerous or whatever, then that's fine. Um, but I'm still, you know, I'm still a whole person. I've not had to sell off
Sorry,
any part of
Gareth.
me.
You can probably hear my dog barking. It's all right. It's my
Sammy,
glamorous
talking.
assistant. Someone at the door.
Oh,
Arthur.
mate. Why do they always think it's for them?
I know, I know. And do you know what? The post normally comes a lot earlier. It's just the postman. But he's my little guard dog. He's tiny as well, but he doesn't know he's small.
They're always the loudest, though, the little
Come
ones, the
here.
yappy ones, aren't they?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry about
No,
that.
I like it. Do you know what? When I have people sometimes on the show and a dog or a cat will just come in and will just sit on their lap, or their kid will come in and sit on the lap. And obviously, normally, if it's the kid, I'll say, like, do you want us to stop? Obviously, because you don't want your kid on film. But most people that you interview aren't that bothered. I like that human element where a dog's barking in the background and stuff like that. It's real as opposed to, you know, a sterile studio where everything's lit and makeup and nonsense like that.
He often sits on my lap, but he's not up for it at the moment. I think he's still worried about who's at the door. But my wife works away. She's a support worker. She works with vulnerable kids in a secure unit. And so she goes away for 48 hours at a time. And I'm on a farm in the middle of Devon. There's nothing around me. I can't even see a house, just fields,
Really? Wow.
which is, it's nice, but I do sometimes feel lonely is the wrong word. Isolated is probably the right word. So I do sometimes think, well, this is a great place to research and write because you don't get disturbed. But when you do hear a car pull up or a knock at the door, I'm constantly being told someone's going to come and get me. They're going to take me away. And every now and again, I think, is it now? You
Is
know,
it now?
but I imagine, you know, you've had that perhaps a lot more than I have and to a far greater extent.
Well, I'll be honest, mate. Like, I had a nightmare. I went to Serbia. I've been to Serbia twice this year, actually, to speak at events. There's quite a big movement out in the Balkans, people that are awake to what's going on. But I guess you know they've seen it with the war in Yugoslavia and all that stuff, so it's more raw for them. But um, but the first time I went, I was going to Liberland, which is this little enclave of you know basically free
Yeah.
society, yeah. And so I could have. Like, I knew I was being picked up by a shuttle like cab. I swear this guy said Lieberland. I swear he did. Like a guy walks up to me anyway. He says Lieberland. So I go, yeah, Lieberland. He goes, okay. So then we get in the car, and then we're talking. Um, and I realise after about half an hour, this ain't the shuttle. And the reason I realise is because he asked me for money to pay the thing. But it's about a 2 hour 40 drive from Belgrade down to Lieberland, right? And I'm thinking, right, I'm in a car now. I don't know this guy. So I messaged the organisers and they were like, yeah, the guy for the shuttle is waiting for you. I was like, oh, mate. Like, because he definitely said Lieberland to me. I'm like, am I being kidnapped here? Then he phones
Oh
someone, right?
no.
And he's rowing. So I don't speak Serbian, but whatever, him and the guy are going back and forth, and he's not happy. And I'm just sat there like, anyway. After about an hour, we're in the middle of nowhere, it's dead flat, and he just pulls off the road onto like the gravel by the side of the road. There's no one, no cars, no one, no houses, nothing. Just literally middle of nowhere, like in the middle of the Las Vegas, you know, Nevada desert, you know. And he got out the car, and I was the same. I just sat there. And I thought, oh, so this is how it ends, is it? This is it. And then I sort of waiting a couple of seconds. I'm thinking, right, my door's going to open, and it didn't. And I was like, and I looked. He was just having a wee in the field. right? Just had his back to me, just weeing in a field of crops. I was like, oh, okay. And then he got back in. Lovely bloke. But if I had that for a minute, I thought this is it. Yeah, this is how it ends. Bullet in the head in Serbia. But no, he was just having a wee instead.
Have you had any close calls? Because I know when you were talking, during the pandemic, you had to be quickly rushed off.
Yeah, that was the government being the government. That was. I never had any stuff like that. Really, like the police would come wading in. Although I'll be honest, I'm not even sure they were real police. I don't think they were just PC plod. I think they were probably mercenaries. But they would come in and yeah, a couple of times I had to get the hell out of Dodge. But they were. I had people around me, luckily, that I could rely on without really realizing that I could rely on them. Because when it came to the protest, I was really strict with that stuff, especially the ones during the height of the strongest lockdowns, which was because they'd say, right, arrive at this time, there's a car park here, because some of them were quite a way away. You can stay overnight. We found a place for you to stay here and all sort of stuff. And I was like, I never did anything that I was told. So if I was told to park on one side of the city, I'd parked on the other. I'd never travel with anyone else. I'd only ever go on my own, and I would never stay overnight. I was in and I was out and I was home. Um, because you don't know who people are, and obviously, I know with my sort of geeky love of industry and stuff. I know with the mining strikes and all that sort of stuff, they were infiltrated by British intelligence. There's no way British intelligence wasn't infiltrating the COVID resistance. No chance. So I was like, right. And so I was watching all these people getting arrested, and I never did. And I kept thinking, the people are getting, I don't know if people are getting lured into traps, but I'm just going to trust my intuition and be on my own. But there was one in Truro, which was really crazy. So there was a lady called Jo organised it. Lovely lady, kept in touch. We've hung out a few times since, gets on well with my kids. But at the time, I didn't know her. And so we get to her house, and then she then drives me and two other speakers literally just down the road to this speech. And it's rammed. This is around Christmas 2020. So they're just about, in fact, the next day, Boris Johnson locked everyone back down again. It's rammed. There's police everywhere, but they're all around the outside. They're being quite jovial and cordial with everyone. It's fine. And and so everyone gets up and does their speech. It's fine. It's fine. And then I get up and I'm last, right? So I get up and do my speech, and I'm looking as I'm speaking that the police are starting to coordinate their movements to sort of corral, which they weren't doing before. They were just mingling. And I'm thinking something's going on here. And then when it ended, literally the second that microphone went down, they moved in. And I'm thinking, what the hell's going on? And at that point, Joe basically just grabs me off into a car which is waiting, and we're gone. Like James freaking Bond or something. And I was like, thank you so much. Like, you've got me the hell out of Dodge. But what the hell's going on? And then it dawned on me, they couldn't stop the right to protest. They weren't allowed to do that. But they'd stopped illegal gatherings, or what they considered to be illegal gatherings.
Yeah,
So as long as you were talking and this protest was happening and you were interacting with the audience, that was the protest. Couldn't do anything about that. But the minute the mic went down, the protest had ended. Then it became an illegal gathering. In which case, boom, they moved in and they arrested a bunch of people and whatever. And it's like, oh mate, they know what they're doing. But yeah, I was
yeah.
lucky in that sense. Without her, I'd have been well, I'd have turned around and legged it probably. But yeah, I wouldn't have known where to go or whatever. So I lucked out in that sense.
Casey Hopkins has been arrested again, hasn't she? Have you heard about that?
Yeah, yeah. Do you know, it's funny. Like I've never had it. Like I've never had the police turn up at my door for any of these famous last words, for anything I've said. But then I think because I'm not almost purposely divisive, I'm not telling people, I make a point of not telling people what to do. Like I remember when I gave the speech in London that the Times had taken off Facebook because apparently that's the media's job now. Um, and he was saying, you tell people this and you tell people that. This was the interviewer. And I said to him, I said, no, I don't. I said, watch, you can watch back that as many times as you want. I don't tell anyone to do anything. I make a point of not telling people to do stuff because I don't want them telling me what to do. I say what I'm going to do. I say, I'm not doing this. I'm not going along with this. So that's not the same. So I'm not inciting anything, and I think maybe that's why if you take to a stage and you tell people to go and do something, then they can try and do you for that. Whereas I don't. I'm not telling people what to do. We're all individuals, and sound like Life of Brian. We're all individuals, and we should be in control of our own lives. You don't, for me at least, you don't have the government telling you what to do and then replace that with someone like me telling you what to do. Like that's just freaking pointless. So yeah, so maybe that's why I've avoided it in that sense.
What's your biggest concern right now? I mean, I know there's a lot of things going on, but what's your
I
biggest?
mean, digital ID is the big one, mate, at the minute, because that is such an integral part of everything that they want to bring in after it. So, even through COVID, we were talking about the fact of what they wanted. They want ultimate control essentially over what you can eat, where you can go, who you can see, what you can say online, what you can access, your banking, like literally everything, your medical history and all that, and exclude you from society based on you not playing ball, basically. I mean, even like through COVID, we were talking a lot about the social credit system in China and how that's basically what they're trying to implement here and what they want. Well, none of that happens without digital ID. So it's like basically it's like a pizza essentially. You've got all these toppings and all these flavorings that they want to get in, but without the base, well, it's just a load of shit on the side. It doesn't work. Whereas digital ID brings the whole lot together, and that's why it's so crucial that we fight it. And I think I think people are quite naive about it. Some naive in the sense that there's that whole, if you're not doing anything wrong, you've got nothing to worry about. It's like, well, yeah, but who determines what's wrong? No one aligns with the state all the time. So even if you think you're winning now, you won't be tomorrow necessarily. Um, and then there's also that bit where people say, well, it's just another form of ID. You've got a driving license, passport, it doesn't matter, whatever. So there's that sort of almost apathy towards it, like it's not a big deal. But then the other one that I've seen quite a bit is probably more technological in the sense that people don't believe they've got the capability to do it. It would take billions and months, maybe even years to build the infrastructure for this digital ID. They can't just roll it out like that. And you're like, do you remember track and trace? What did you think that was? What did you think that was for? £37 billion on an app that no one used and it never did anything. No, it's not what it was built for. It was built for this, and I think people will be surprised in terms of how quickly they can implement it if they don't get the resistance from the people.
How
And
quickly do you think that's going to happen? How far
well,
away
I don't
are
think
we?
I don't think it is going to happen, mate, because I think we're going to fight it, and I think we're going to win, and I'm massively optimistic about that. Actually, I know they've picked now to introduce it because they see the country is divided, which it is, and so they don't think that people will unite. Muslims who, by their very nature, really are quite conservative people who will oppose digital ID, and then you've got right wing conservatives who would oppose digital ID. You've got two massive groups of people now that could, if they joined
Yeah,
together, could oppose it. So the government is obviously picking a time using their behavioural insights folk in Whitehall to go, right, now's the time to go for it, because these two sets of people that if they join forces are going to be a bit of a hurdle for us. They're now not going to join forces because they hate each other, you
yeah.
know. So I just hope people get over that and get beyond it, as we did during COVID. To be fair, like I remember walking down the streets of London and other cities around the country with people that I wouldn't normally align with, and they wouldn't normally align with me either. And they would often start their um, tweets with "I don't normally agree with him, but," because everyone has to get that caveat in there for whatever reason. I don't know why, as if they're going to be shamed. Um, but I hope that happens again. And like I said in the show this week, we, for want of sounding a bit childish, we can go back to calling each other knobheads tomorrow, but actually this is bigger than all of us, um, as one individual tribal group. It's because it affects everyone, and once it's in, and they can digitally exclude you from everything, they will. Um, they had a real little dry run at it during COVID, where we saw a bit of it, where people weren't allowed to do certain things. Um, and they'll go for it again, but on steroids, that's for sure.
Did you see COVID coming?
No, not like my dad did. I mean, I was at a point where I knew something was coming, because what they wanted to implement, I was of the opinion that they would probably use war or terrorism at the time to try and do that, because terrorism was cured by COVID, wasn't it? But the time leading up to that, from around 2015, 16, 17, and 18, things were sort of ramping up on that front, and there were more attacks happening around Europe and France particularly. And I thought, oh, this is the road they're going to go down. But yeah, they went down the sniffles instead.
Do you think they'll have another go? Do you think we'll see another pandemic?
I don't think they've got the World Health Organization's pandemic treaty and all the amendments to the treaties through for no reason.
Mm,
I don't, because they had to fight and fight to get it through, and it took the best part of 2 years. So I don't think you'd bother doing that unless you had a plan to use it. Because what would be the point?
yeah.
It's just
Um, am I
you would.
right in thinking that it went through in May and that it's got to sit for a year before it can be enforced?
That doesn't surprise me. It does ring a bell, actually. Yeah. So May next year, then that'll be fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we've got the 4th of July. I keep thinking about the 4th of July because that'll be 250 years since New World Order, the start of New World Order.
Well, there's. I think they're planning something. I think they're planning something, and I think they've tried to use the mass immigration as an excuse to bring in digital ID. They're doing that, I think, to try and hoodwink the right, because the right generally would oppose digital ID probably more than the left, although I am generalizing. Um, and I don't think it's working, because people are opposed to mass immigration and they're being very vocal about it, but they also don't want digital ID, and I don't think they've been hoodwinked as it will solve it. So therefore, why would I support it? But I think, if we start to get terror attacks, say terror attacks, in multiple locations carried out by asylum seekers, and we don't know where they are. We need to find out where everyone is. Um, what people are purchasing, because maybe there's been fertilizer bombs or whatever. We need to know what people are buying online, and they create this fear and ramp it up, and because they're freaking demonic, they'll probably target children because they know that that's an
Yeah,
emotive thing for people. And then at that point, when it's really at powder keg time, they will then go, bosh, here's one I made earlier with that, and hope that they can get it through on that front, or maybe even just try and push it through based on emergency legislation. That's the thing.
yes,
That's how they do it, and there's always an emergency anytime they want to declare one.
yeah. And then they introduce new laws for that that are never actually withdrawn afterwards.
They never rescind them. That's the point, isn't
No.
it? That's the point, mate. Yeah.
So I've also heard rumors saying the same thing, that it probably is going to be some sort of virus that attacks the respiratory system again, aimed at children, because it will pull on the heartstrings a little bit more. And of course, parents will become quite defensive towards you protecting their children. You live next door, you're not having the jab, you're going to harm my kids. And it'll work a little bit more, I suppose, emotively than we were being told we were going to kill Granny, by not,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Hold that thought. I've just thought my battery's gone a bit weird, and it's not actually plugged in. Give me 10 seconds. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
Sorry, mate. Sorry, mate. Oh.
Don't be.
Another. It's just dawned on me in terms of you talking about that. If you don't get the jab, you're putting my kids at risk and all that kind
Mm,
of stuff to try and set people against each other. They kind of did that in terms of different demographics in COVID, didn't they? In terms of trying to set people against Muslims, because the Muslim Christian battle seems to be what's being coordinated at the moment.
yeah,
And I remember Leicester. Do you remember Leicester, which is obviously just huge? I mean, it's majority non-white, isn't it? With obviously massive Indian, Bangladeshi, Pakistani areas. I think they were basically tier 4. You know that ridiculous tier system. They were basically kept in a full lockdown pretty much for the whole time, weren't they? And I remember watching news articles and people whinging about the fact, oh yeah, it's bloody Muslims, like they don't follow the rules. They've got loads of people. All the family members are traveling between houses. That's who's spreading it. It's utter nonsense. So that could be part of it as well. That you can not only have the virus and all that kind of nonsense, but you can also set different demographics against each other based on that.
Yeah, divide and conquer.
Oh yeah, it's the oldest trick in the book. But you know what? It
Yeah,
encourages me in a weird kind of way because then I think, well, I guess it's the same with the digital ID. The fact they're pushing digital ID. If they wanted it and they could implement it without us agreeing, that's exactly what they do. So the fact that they have to persuade us to accept something says to me that they can't implement it without us accepting it. So therefore, the power's in our hands. And it would be the same with divide and conquer. You look at it and you go, all that says to me is that you need to divide us to be able to conquer us. So therefore, if we aren't split and we are together, then you've got no chance. In which case, that's fine. So it's still in our hands. Then we just need to stop being divided.
yeah, I totally agree. I don't know about you, but my news feed on social media, it's calmed down a bit, but over the last few months, maybe even longer, all I have seen is people talking about the boats coming over, the dinghies, puncture the dinghies, puncture the dinghies. And my gut feel on this has always been the same, that I believe that the reason we're seeing these young men come across, they're all military serving age, is for a different purpose. I don't think that these are people seeking asylums. We don't see elderly people, we don't see children, we don't see them coming with bags of stuff either. They're all, you know, kind of quite reasonably dressed. They're not looking like they've just trekked through, towns and cities, and I often wonder if they actually have come across on dinghies or if it's something that actually happens just offshore slightly. But I've got a feeling that
Surprise me.
they're going to be uniform trained up, and perhaps they're going to be patrolling the streets and enforcing things that the army wouldn't and the police wouldn't, because they wouldn't want to do something that goes against their friends, family, and their neighbours.
That
What?
is a very real concern that it's an army to basically enforce whatever lockdown is put on us. And you're right because you can reason with a local person that you have you see it all the time in like France and Italy where like the police like there'll be a riot but the police will like put down their shields to stand with the protesters and stuff like that because they have a commonality which you don't have if you're bringing in mercenaries from abroad. So that wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. And it's also the same reason I think in terms of the digital ID with the what you can and can't buy thing. It's another reason why so many of the tills are now not humans; they're just machines because you can't reason with a machine. If you go in and your digital ID says that you've had too much carbon this month, so you can't have a steak or whatever, you can reason with a cashier. And you say, "Oh, mate, come on, Doreen. Like, it's my wife's
Yeah,
birthday. I promised to cook a steak. Come on, just this once." You can't do that with a machine.
yeah,
It's that whole Little Britain thing, isn't it? Computer says no, and
yeah.
that's
It is.
that's what they want, isn't it? So I guess that's another part of it, isn't it? And then I suppose you then put lockdowns into that where you were splitting people from each other, as you said earlier, with where you are. So in the middle of the countryside, you feel isolated. Well, they wanted everyone isolated. That was the whole thing, was it? I'm isolating,
Yeah,
and it's take away that interaction, take away that feeling of community, and what you're left with.
yeah. Social media,
Well,
which,
exactly, which isn't real
yeah,
life. It
no,
isn't real life because they amplify both voices on both sides of the political divide as long as they're divisive. So
yeah,
if you're on the right and you're barking and Charlie Kirk was killed by those blue-haired Democrats, we need to have them all sacked and beaten to a pulp. Your algorithms will go mad. You get shown to everyone. And if you're on the left, that everyone's a Nazi and the far right thugs and we need to do this and that, you get elevated. If you're in the middle going, hang on a minute, these are both like you're both being played, man. You you the algorithm says no, and you get completely suppressed.
any thoughts on Charlie Kirk?
Oh mate, all I know for a fact is that the FBI are lying. That I would put my house on. That this skinny kid in Converse All Stars didn't act alone as some lone nut shooter and shoot him in the throat and kill him. That I'll put everything on. That's just nonsense.
Yeah,
In terms of what happened, whether it was Israel, which wouldn't shock me, whether he was killed by the guy to his right, whether it was the mic exploding, which I know a lot of people are talking about at the minute, or even whether he's even dead. I don't even, none. I mean, I think he is, but I'm open to the idea that he's not because I'm at this point with it where there's so many theories flying around, and I
Yeah.
wonder if this is intentional, that maybe the state is even throwing in some of them themselves to muddy the water. Um, that I honestly don't know what on earth's going on. It's going to take a long time to figure that one out, I think.
It reminded me of Trump when he was shot in the ear. I just saw the same thing, the same old story.
Yeah,
Uh,
and that
uh,
one was fake
yeah.
all day long.
And I just think, is this also about distraction? I mean, with Trump's, for me, it seemed like it was PR.
It got him elected.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, his own people organising it, and this one here, it just smelt of the same thing. And I put a post up on social media saying that this is what's happened. What do you think about it? And all of a sudden, people are saying he's a 33rd degree Freemason. He was actually born a woman. He's deep
Oh God,
state.
that
He's
old
a
chestnut.
psyop. And it's the same thing every time. No matter who I put up there, someone will start talking about them being an invert, or, a member of the establishment, and it's all planned and part of a big agenda. It's every time.
Every time, mate. I get it. I'm a woman, and my brother's a woman, and my dad's a woman, and my wife's a man, and all this sort of stuff.
It,
I don't
yeah.
know. I don't know. Don't know where to go with it, really.
It's getting worse, isn't it? It
It's
really
it's
is.
it's funny. I'll be honest. I find it funny, and there was a whole website thing about it, and I found it funny. And my brother didn't, but I get that because they used pictures of his kids. They didn't do that to
Oh,
me. They put
oh.
pictures of his boys on the website, so I can understand why he was angry because that's outrageous. But yeah, I just laugh at it. Really, it's funny. And they also said that he's got wide childbirth in hips, and he has. So maybe he is. If he's watching, I don't know, mate.
Oh, bless him. Bless him. So what are you looking into at the moment? Is there anything that you're deep diving?
Well, we're supposed to be doing this documentary on furniture fire regs, which I know sounds dead random, but it's really mad what's going on in the UK. We're basically the only country um, with these regulations for these flame retardant chemicals, which are toxic and like just horrendous. It's been overturned in America and stuff, but when I started looking and seeing who was blocking it from being banned here, Valence's name came up, Hancock's
Right.
name came up, and that, my ears pricked at those two names. So we've got a government whistleblower. We've got some people in America that got the things banned there. But basically, on average, in the UK, I think each house has got 40 kg of flame retardant toxic chemicals in, and it's almost certainly linked to the deaths in Grenfell, the Grenfell Tower disaster, and all this kind. It's mad. So that, but we're having a bit of an issue at the minute in terms of just trying to get dates to get because there's so many people and they're in different time zones. That's been a bit of a battle, really. Um, so I've been looking into another thing I've been looking into. I made a little reel thing about it today about this app cloud. Have you ever heard of app cloud?
No, I haven't. No, what's
So
that?
so it's interesting. I just basically saw a Twitter post on it a few days ago, and I was like, "What's that?" So basically, there's an app called App Cloud, which is on Samsung, but it's not just all Samsung devices. It's on a lot of Android ones, and I'm sure iPhones have got their equivalent, just with a different name. But it's basically an app which can not be deleted, can't take it off your phone. So it's pre-installed on your phone, and you can't deactivate it, and you can't uninstall it. Sorry, you can't get rid of it. But basically, it monitors your data and what you're doing and what you're saying, but can also install things onto your phone, including apps and data, without your permission. So I looked into it, and you go, right, who are App Cloud then? Well, they're made by Iron Source. Who are Iron Source? They're an Israeli company. Oh, okay, here we go. So when you look at how Mossad and Israel operate in terms of their spyware, thinking of obviously the Pegasus spyware stuff, they've bugged the White House, they've bugged Boris Johnson's toilet famously. They obviously had all those pages in Lebanon bugged because they all blew up and killed those Hezbollah guys, but also innocent people that were just nearby, including children. And then obviously Netanyahu was at this 50 states, one Israel, as if they always tell you, conference, and he was saying to the delegates, the 250 American lawmakers, you've got cell phones on you, haven't you? You've got a bit of Israel in your pocket. So it's almost like they're telling you. Um, and then look into it a little bit more, and you go, well, I did wonder with Epstein. Obviously, Epstein is working for Mossad. They've got this blackmail operation going on where he's got a camera in every room, catching naughty people doing naughty things, and then using that as compromise against them. Well, they don't need him anymore, which is why they'd be happy to off him, because they've got technology now, so they can have access, backdoor access to everyone's device. So if you're up to no good, then they can just catch you at it and use that to, blackmail you into doing whatever's best for them rather than your own country and stuff like that. But then when I look at this app, and there'll be others exactly the same, where you've got an Israeli malware software in your phone which has the ability to put stuff on your phone without your permission. So then actually suddenly you don't need to just catch people at something and compromise. You can put it there. So if someone speaks out against you, if
Yeah.
someone's a political opponent or a dissident, you can plant shit on their phone, and then have it discovered. And yeah, look, see, he's a wrong'un. And there's a lot of wrong'uns within the establishment, but
Oh,
but
absolutely.
yeah, but not all of them. And so if someone's not playing ball and you've got no way of blackmailing them to do something, you can put that there, which is a concern. People should be concerned the fact that you've got a device that has Israeli spyware and Israeli malware on it, and you can't take it off.
No,
That's
no.
mad. Even
I,
even if it's not, and people will go, "Oh, he's obsessed with Israel." Even if it wasn't Israel, right? I'm not a big fan of genocide, so I'm not a fan of Israel. But even if it wasn't them, even if it was Azerbaijan, or even if it was Italy, an Italian spyware company's got on your phone in England, and you can't take it off, you'd still be like, "What? That's insane."
so people out there right now have got no idea this is on their phone, their Android phone.
No, and it's quite hard to find App Cloud as well. You have to hunt in to find it, but it's there, and you can't uninstall it. Because obviously, when I saw that tweet, I sort of borrow a phone in the office. We've got a Samsung. Let's have a look. So I'm not just going to tweet about it unless I've verified it. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because people put stuff out there for no reason, clicks mainly. And yeah, sure enough, it is there, and sure enough, you cannot delete it. You can deactivate it, but then you're trusting them to actually to actually deactivate it. But when I looked on a lot of our online forums where people are talking about this, they're saying, yeah, but when you do deactivate it, it will sporadically just turn itself back on again without you going in and reactivating it. So in which case you can just turn it off. I've done that, and then well, then just turn
Yeah.
itself back on whenever it wants, and look at who you're talking to, what you're saying, where you're going. It's
And plant
Yeah, it
things
has the
there.
capability. It has the capability to, as Samsung admit, it has the capability to install stuff on your phone without your permission. Doesn't specify what that stuff
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, it
It's
could be all
it's
sorts of
it's
images.
it could be any exactly. It could be anything, mate.
Yeah, I often wonder that. Going back to Epstein, do you do you think he was killed, or because I saw some footage shortly after he allegedly hung himself in that cell of him back on the island, stood next to a black 4x4.
I'll be honest. I remember one image of the body being wheeled out, and if it hadn't been doctored, and it didn't look like it had been, but if it hadn't, he ain't got the same nose for one. So the idea that he's, not had a little bit of plastic surgery and is sunning himself on a beach in Netanya, that wouldn't
Mm,
surprise me at all. It wouldn't
yeah,
surprise me. Even if you think back, like to John Dillinger. I mean, what was John Dillinger? Was it 1920s? He was going across state lines as a bank robber. He was going across state lines, and he'd had plastic surgery. This is in the 1920s,
yeah,
and was evading detection. And you're like, I mean, that guy was unreal. I don't know what the thing was with him, but he had some serious front, didn't he, John
yeah,
Dillinger? But
absolutely, yeah,
but if you're able to do that in the 20s and evade detection, then yeah. And this is the thing: if an older guy, like a guy in his, I mean, what would he be now? 70s, early 70s, would he be? Late
yeah,
60s,
it
early
must
70s.
be.
If he walked past you in Asda and he'd had a bit of, plastic surgery, you wouldn't think, oh, that's Jeffrey Epstein, because you wouldn't expect him to be picking up frozen lasagnas in Asda, would you? Like
No,
you just wouldn't. So
no, you're quite
it
right.
wouldn't shock me if he was still alive. It wouldn't shock me at all. But it
I
also
put,
wouldn't shock me that they offed him because
yeah,
surplus to requirements.
yeah. I kind of saw similarities between him and Richard Branson. Huge similarities. The private island and alleged parties and people going in and out. And then someone had told me a little while ago that Branson actually owns, through a shelf company, he actually owns or has a huge financial stake in all of the private abortion clinics in in Britain. And then there's the Scarlet Lady, the Virgin, and I just started thinking about him, and I've got this feeling that anybody who gets knighted these days, I mean, look at David Beckham, he's knighted, then he's on the World Economic Forum stage. Is there something that they have to do to get knighted that isn't in the public interest?
Wouldn't surprise me at all. As soon as someone's a sir, I'm out.
Yeah.
Especially when they're supposedly alternatives. So like Sir Mick Jagger or Sir Mick McCarthy, the football manager, Paul McCartney. You're like,
Oh, Paul
what?
McCartney, Billy Shears.
Yeah, that's a weird one, isn't it?
Mm.
There's so many things from history that you just think, I don't know. I don't know. I'm open to all of it now, mate.
Yeah, I am. Nothing's off the table anymore. And
No.
the more you dig, the more you start to think that actually everything we're told is a lie. Everybody that we've been told about is probably inverted. And I look back at history, and I've got this obsession with Nikola Tesla, and I just think, maybe he didn't actually exist, and people shoot you down for it. But I argue no living descendants, no footage, no video footage of him. Yet there is of Edison and Einstein, and this is the man at the forefront of technology. Didn't hear about him at school either. We were told about Edison, nothing about Tesla. And I just think sometimes maybe they throw us a fictional character or a story to cover something else up. But now I think a lot of it's just distraction. A lot of the news that we're pumped is just distraction.
Oh, totally. Yeah, they want you focused on the little bits and bobs that take up your time and make you feel helpless and make you feel like, oh, I can't cope with this. I think that's why they throw so many things at once.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I think they learned that from COVID. When they chucked that, and it was so blatant, but it was one battle. We only really had one battle, which was to fight that. Um, and then suddenly, you threw in the cost of living and Russia, Ukraine, and then Gaza and everything else, and they're just throwing stuff all the time at people. And in the end, people just go, "Oh, I can't deal with it. Can't
Yeah.
deal with it."
What are your views on Trump? Because I get mixed opinions on this. A lot of people, a lot of Americans that I talk to, think he's the savior, that he is the new
Yeah,
Messiah, and he's going to be the King of Israel. And what are your thoughts on him?
I can't stand the bloke. I don't think I've ever seen a bigger fraud than that guy. Like he's a monumental narcissist for one. Um, but I'm at a point now that I don't understand how people are still on the Trump train after everything. You can pick out different things, and you think if Biden had done that, you'd have had him for breakfast. Yet there's always a free pass for Donald Trump, which I don't understand. I'm confused by it. All that I can imagine now is that the accusations of Trump derangement syndrome are just an inversion. And actually, those that are accusing you of having it are those with the biggest case of it. Um, yeah, I mean, he'll show himself more and more to be what he is, but he seems to be leading people down the path to dystopia, and they're cheering him on.
Yeah,
At
yeah.
least here, our leader is so freaking hated that actually there might be a bit of resistance to it. Whereas, there's people in America that if they came home and found Donald Trump with their wife, they'd say, he had to, he had no choice. There'd
Yeah,
always be an excuse. It's very
yeah.
strange.
I totally agree with that. With our leader, I always think that there was an opportunity with him to stop Savile. Now, it might not have landed on his desk initially, but at some point, he was aware, head of prosecution, he was aware of what was going on, and it was overlooked.
Yeah.
and people have forgotten that. All the people that voted him in, I still don't believe that personally. I don't vote because I don't believe they're counted. I don't think it makes any difference at all
No,
what
I
we
don't either.
tick. I think what they're going to do, Brexit even, I don't think it mattered. They were going to do it regardless. I don't think they take any notice of what we're doing. But when people were voting for him, I sometimes think that they'll vote for the opposition because they're sick of the current government. So they'll go red, blue, and they think that actually that's going to change. And I often say to people, if you watch them arguing in Parliament, what changes at the end of that debate? How did that argument change anything? And it
Yeah.
is just theatre, and people just don't see it.
No, it's a theatre is exactly what it is. It is.
Have you got any thoughts on who is obviously your dad's got really strong views on this, but ultimately sat at the very top? Who do you think is pulling the strings
I don't
above the
think
World Economic
I
Forum?
was going to say I don't think we'd be able to point at them in a lineup, to be honest. But obviously, Dad's opinion is that they're going beyond this realm, which wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. You know, even if you just basically on the sense that their anti-human agenda
Mm,
is pretty obvious. They can't stand us, so it's not then much of a leap to go up to. Well, maybe they ain't us.
yes.
But I think the people. I always think, when they give you a world leader, there's someone around them. I get this from Netanyahu. When I look at Netanyahu, I mean, that guy is a demon, but when you look at his wife, she's a freaking demon. And so there's just an energy about her that I'm just like, I think she wears the trousers. I think she's like his handler in a way.
Yeah.
And I think that that's probably true of most governments and most organizations, that actually the ones that come out in the expensive suit are not the ones making the decisions. The one stood just behind them. I don't know. Can you just make that guy out? Yeah, I don't recognize him. That's
Yeah.
probably the one who's holding um, more levers of power. And to be fair, I mean, Dominic Cummings, he explained that, didn't he, when he was talking about the fact, because he was advisor to Boris Johnson, he was making the point that when these people roll in to have their cabinet meetings, that the notes are in front of them, and they have a couple of minutes of dialogue, which is just for the cameras, and then they sign it. But it's not been written by them, and most of the time they don't even read it. It's written by the permanent government, which is the civil servants, which don't get elected or unelected when another government comes in.
Yeah.
And that's him saying it, and he's not a conspiracy theorist or whatever. He's from someone who worked in government as an advisor to the prime minister, saying, yeah, they don't make the decisions, don't make decisions at all.
Why do you do? I mean, my only conclusion to the people or the whatever it is, these beings that are in charge, that the reason that they sort of despise us so much has to be because they are a completely different breed and their obsession with the bloodlines. And I do think strongly that actually that is because they are not us. And there
No,
is, and we're often compared to as, if you follow the origin of species from Charles Darwin, that we evolved from apes, but we have a tailbone. Apes don't have tails, and our skin, if you look at it closely or under a microscope, it's scaly. I think that the tail and our skin, and certainly a sort of a reptilian part of our brain, does actually come back to that ultimately. And I do lean towards that. I'm not sure. I've seen lots of footage of shape shifting and so on, but I'm kind of one of those people that I'd need to see it firsthand.
I
Uh,
know what
uh,
you mean. A lot of
I,
it's like you can look at it and you go, mate, that's just like a video glitching. Like you can see it. But yeah, yeah, you're right.
but I do think that some of it isn't. I do, I've seen some footage where it is just the face and there's no glitch anywhere else. But again, I just don't know. I I kind of like with all of my research, I need three independent sources of information before I'll actually start looking into something and thinking this has got legs, this is going somewhere. But it's so
Yeah.
difficult to tell, isn't it?
Well, yeah, because there's also information put out there intentionally, like we're saying with the Charlie Kirk
Yeah.
shooting. You put red herrings out there and put little rabbit holes that aren't really going anywhere or are going off places that take you away from like the lab leak theory, for instance. It takes you down another rabbit hole, which doesn't change anything because even if it's a lab leak, it still exists, and therefore all the impositions still stand. You know, like there's
Yeah.
yeah, I think there's a
Yeah.
lot of that goes on, mate.
Is there a conspiracy theory out there that interests you, that's not something you're into as part of your job, part of your life? Is there one out there that you think kind of, you know, that you would love to know about?
Um, I don't know. I mean, the flat Earth stuff's interesting, isn't it? It
Mm.
would be nice to know what the deal is with that. I don't know what it would necessarily change because it would. I guess it would tell you that the governments have all been in cahoots and lying to you, and it's like, well, yeah, but I know that anyway, so it actually wouldn't really change anything. The best conspiracy theory I ever heard was that giraffes aren't real, and I'm not even kidding. And I was like, what? What do you mean? I've literally seen them about a bunch of times. But there genuinely is or was a conspiracy out there that they're not, they don't exist. They're a fabrication, and it's like that was amazing to me because I was talking to a guy when I used to work in the gym. I used to train this guy, and he was saying, "Have you seen this one?" And I was like, "What? Oh, yeah. So what's that?" Like thinking it was like a parody site or something. And it wasn't. There was people out there that believed that it was just. I love the idea of that.
Wow. I mean,
Yeah.
there are some animals that don't make any sense to me. The duck-billed platypus, I kind of look at that and think, what on earth happened there? But I think the panda is, and I know they look cute, and I don't, mean them any harm or anything like that. But if you look at them actually as a successful species, they're kind of useless. They
Well, yeah. I mean,
they can't climb and they struggle to mate. I mean,
yeah, they're just not interested in eating anything but leaves, are they?
yeah, and I
Yeah.
think were they just introduced to clear bamboo? Were they actually introduced into the system?
Maybe that's it. Maybe it's just cheaper than a tractor. Yeah.
Do you think, going back to the flat Earth, do you think that there is a possibility there's more land out there?
Yeah, I think there is. Yeah, I think there's a possibility that there's a Middle Earth as well, like almost like a Lord of the Rings type Middle Earth thing. I'm
Hmm.
I'm I'm the same as you, mate. I'm open to absolutely everything. And I'm open to the timeline being completely different from what we're told it is. Things, the Earth being a different age, different shape. I'm open to absolutely everything. Because even with the flat Earth thing, like if it's a globe, then I have to believe NASA, right? And well, I don't believe
Yeah,
NASA. So it's to it's funny because you I don't take a leap into something I don't know. I don't know if it's flat or not. I've got no idea. So I can guess if you like, but I don't really see the point in that. So I'll just say I'm open to whatever,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. Difficult. Whenever somebody says to me, "Do you believe that it's a spinning ball or a flat Earth?" I don't think we're spinning. I get a sense that we're not. But I always say the same thing. I haven't been up high enough to see for myself, and I haven't tried to circumnavigate. I've not been to Antarctica, but I find the treaty in place very strange.
Yeah, exactly. But
Especially,
I'm the same. I'm the same. Like I'm open to this stuff, but I don't know. And that's one. I think that's one thing that the flat Earth lot, not all of them. There's some really sound ones like Flat Earth Dave Weiss. I've got a lot of time for him, but others where they're so vitriolic with it that if you don't immediately align with the fact that it's flat, then they go at you and they attack you. And I don't understand that because I've had it, and this is someone that's open to the fact that it might be. Um, you still get attacked, and you're like, that's not a way to make friends and influence people. I don't see why people, you can't just be a little bit more cordial and polite with that.
oh
Like I
man,
say, not
yeah,
all of them, but there's a lot, and you may have come across them that they go at you if you don't immediately, align with what they think. It's yeah, I think
yeah.
that really uh,
I
get
get
along
that
with that.
quite a lot. I get
Oh,
people who they just disagree with me, and then out it all comes, like I said earlier on, 33rd degree Freemason, PSYOP, and so on. But the flat Earth thing's interesting because I don't know if you've ever heard of a show called The Y Files. It's on YouTube. He's got a huge following, and he goes through every single conspiracy theory. It's really well done. Um, but what he does at the end is he debunks bits and pieces, which kind of shatters a lot of people's dreams, really. But it was interesting. He's called AJ Gentile, and he was on, which is a strange surname. He was on a show recently being interviewed. He was on Rogan, and then he was on another huge podcaster out in the States. And he said that whenever he's talked about flat Earth on YouTube, that particular upload, that particular video is immediately demonetized.
right.
Out of all of them, it's the only ones that ever will be. And he actually spoke about that. And I thought, that's interesting, isn't it? Of all of the topics he covers, why are those ones demonetized straight away? And he
Yeah.
said it's the same with other people. As soon as they put something big out there about it being a flat Earth, they will actually receive a strike, and the actual video will be demonetized. I think
Which
there's got to
is,
be something to it.
well, there is strange because where even if it wasn't true, where's the harm
Mm,
in that? It's not like calling, I don't know, like a certain race of people something or a certain country something that you could say could incite hatred or anger towards a certain demographic or whatever. Who's going to get offended? The Earth.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
yeah,
what
it's
does it? What
strange.
does it matter? Have you got any talks or events coming up soon? Anything in this
Yeah,
country that we could go to?
yeah. On October the 5th in Birmingham, actually, there's an event. A guy called Ant Critchley is putting an event together with myself and loads of others. A little bit of talking. There's some live music and comedy and stuff. It's basically about trying to
Wow.
get people together in person as opposed to just doing stuff online as most people do all the time. So that's the 5th of October from 3 p.m. till 9 p.m. and then it goes on I think till early hours, well past my bedtime. Um, yeah, a place called the Actress and the Bishop in Birmingham, which is funny because I used to gig there in a previous life in my early 20s.
Yeah.
It's a little venue, but it's cool, nice old building and stuff. So yeah,
Yeah,
that
because
would that
you're a musician, aren't you? I don't suppose
in a
everybody's aware
previous
of that.
life, mate. Yeah, I get the guitar out maybe once, twice a year for a freedom festival, but apart from that, not so much really anymore. Don't really have time for it, to be honest. I'm kind of just all go, and then
Yeah.
as soon as I leave and go home, it's parenthood kicks in, and that's a full time bloody job as well. So
Do you
yeah.
not find yourself working into the night once the kids are in bed?
Oh yes, mate.
Mm,
Yeah, yeah, I do. Yeah, it's every now and then I will take like I'm not a big video game, like I'm not a gamer. But I have got a PlayStation and I've got an ice hockey game on it, NHL game. So I tend to play one game before bed each night, like 5 nights a week, which might sound weird for like a bloke in his 40s, but that's my
yeah.
because it's a bloody computer game, like it's whatever, and then I'll go to bed. So that just creates that little gap between working, analyzing, reading emails, having people tell us, about their stories and stuff, which a lot of it's not very pleasant in terms of what they've been through, and whatever. To
Yeah.
create just a little barrier between that and laying down and closing your eyes and yeah, so that and it seems to work for me. Just that's my little bit of chill. It's about 15 minutes, but it seems to be enough.
You need it, don't you? You need something. And my wife always says the same thing because she works away. She goes away for 48 hours. She's back for 4 days, then away again. But the first day back, she's not slept for 2 days, so
Yeah.
she doesn't do anything. Then we try and do something on one of the days. Then she's got jobs she needs to do. So while she's away, she always says to me when she texts me to around sort of 9, 10 o'clock at night to say good night, she always says to me, "I hope you're now just watching some shit."
Yeah, you do. You need it, mate. Richie Willett, he watches
Yeah.
wrestling. That's his
Does
little
he?
escape. Just old school wrestling. Yeah.
Oh, bloody hell. How old school are we going here? Giant haystacks and Big Daddy old school, or
I'm
is
not
this
sure that old. I think more, probably Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, that sort
right?
of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, but just
Y-
that, we all need that, just little thing. Like, and I play ice hockey twice a week as well. And when I do, like people say, oh, it's all bread and circuses. I'm like, yeah, but I like bread and I like circuses. And as long as I know that's what it is, it's that
That's
little bit of
it.
escapism from the bullshit to recharge so you can go again tomorrow. I think it's important because otherwise, if you just live in the rabbit hole, it's dark, man. Like it's a
Yeah.
dark place.
I've had my brother say to that to me a couple of times. I mean, unfortunately, he's not quite where I am, and you think my dad is. You know, my mum is to an extent. All of my family are, but my brother's not. He teeters on the edge of jumping down a rabbit hole, but he's just not quite there. And he's been through some pretty traumatic things, and I think he's just distracted. And I think he spends a lot of the time trying to stay sane because
Yeah.
the poor sod, first sort of chunk of the lockdown, the first lockdown we went into, his wife leaves him,
Oh shit.
and then he was incorrectly diagnosed with bowel cancer. He just had a high potassium level. He lives in Tenerife, and believe it or not, he's eating too many bananas,
Bloody hell.
and he was having issues. And the doctor said, "We think you might have bowel cancer." His wife's just gone. She's Spanish. He's on an island. He doesn't know anybody else. He's got nothing. She comes from a really wealthy family. So he just went out, rolled his sleeves up, and did whatever he was asked to do. And I pleaded with him, as I did with a lot of friends, and I lost a lot of friends from being outspoken during 2020, and then ultimately I lost Twitter, I lost Instagram, and then I lost Facebook as well, and had to start again. But I kind of almost lost my brother. He just thought I was barking mad, and it's only now that he's sort of coming to terms with the fact that I might have been right, and
Yeah,
he, I think there's quite a few people out there that regret taking, the shot.
100%, 100%. No, no one regrets not taking it. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I often wonder if our blood has got a higher value. Unvaccinated blood, does that have a higher value to it?
I don't know. I've never tried to sell it, but maybe,
I'm just
maybe
thinking,
on the black market.
yeah, well, I was just thinking with regard to transfusions. I mean,
Yeah, but yeah, well, that's the thing as well, isn't it? Because I had blood transfusions as a kid when I had surgery, but now, I mean, what would you do? Because you'd demand unvaccinated blood, but would they give it to you? I mean, touch wood, it don't happen.
yeah. And I also heard that the elites, which I prefer to call them parasites, but they won't fly if they're flying on a private jet in a very confined area, obviously recirculating farts and everything else. They won't fly if the cabin crew or the pilots have been vaccinated. And I've
Doesn't
I've heard
surprise me
that
in the
more than
slightest.
once from a lot of different people.
Doesn't surprise me in the slightest. They probably assume that the pilot is, the potential of them keeling over is higher as well for a start.
Yeah, absolutely. And they strongly deny that that still takes place, but we've seen it. We've seen it all. I'm
Yeah.
sort of aware you've only got an hour and I've taken up quite a bit of your time. So I'm just going to ask you one last question.
Okay, mate.
If you could bring someone back, someone famous back from the past, and you could spend an hour with them and they had to answer you honestly, any question you fired at them, who would you bring back?
Great question. Jeez. Charlie Quirk at the moment, out of his book. No, because in the old days, like I would have said, you'd say, your Kurt Cobains or your John Lennons or people like, people that you wanted to hang out with or whatever and spend time with and really pick their brain and stuff. But now, it's all, I want to know world events. Um, I don't know. I think Hitler would be an interesting one,
That's mine.
wouldn't he? Not,
Yeah, Adolf
not because,
Rothschild. Yeah.
not to shake his hand, but to yeah, I mean, who was behind you? Who was funding you? What was going on? Like what was all this about? Um, how much of what we're told from the history of the World War II is bona fide fact, and how much of it is Hollywood propaganda? I guess that would be, I mean, you could go further back, couldn't you, and go into some real, the formation of England and all that kind of stuff, and what was going on there and all that, which
Mm,
would be interesting. Um, but no, I think I probably would. I think that would probably be just because
yeah.
it's recent enough that it's something that's still spoken about all the time and it's used to excuse lots of things.
Yeah.
So yeah, that probably be mine.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Absolutely. I don't believe anything I'm told anymore, and I don't believe any of our history. I think that it is really written by the victors, and I think to actually have someone who will always be in my lifetime, up until now, we don't know what's coming ahead, but up until now, will always be painted as being the most vile person that ever walked the face of the earth. But I've got a funny feeling that that might not necessarily be the full story, and I'd love just an hour of his time
Oh,
because I
absolutely.
just
I could guarantee it's not the full story. That's not
mm,
to say that he wasn't an evil geezer. He may well have been, but I think, yeah, you're like you say, history is told by the victor,
mm,
and it's exploited in various different ways. So they never give you the whole story. So there'd be more
no,
to know for sure, mate.
yeah. Well, thank you. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for I know you're sort of covering for your brother as well at the moment, aren't you? So it's all
Yeah, no,
hands
it's
to
cool.
the
I've got
deck.
an hour of emails, and then
Oh
I'm
man,
home to the kids, so it's not too bad. I've been yeah up since 5, but I've kind of become a morning person now, which I never was before. Like I'd be up doing stuff till like 3 a.m. and then I'd get up at 11 a.m. Whereas now I'm, yeah, up at 5 every morning. So I'm
Yeah.
acclimatizing now.
Do you feel better for it?
No, not at all.
Ah,
Not
I'm
at
the
all. No,
same. I was
no.
in bed
But
9
yeah,
o'clock. I'm done. By 9 o'clock at night, I'm done.
really. See,
And yeah.
I can't really sleep before midnight. So I'm generally a 5 hours sleep kind of guy. And then on the weekend I might go really mad and get 6. But if I'm really pushing it out.
So I'd love six. Well, thanks, Gareth. Thanks for chatting to me. I really do appreciate
No, I've
it.
enjoyed it, mate. Thanks. And I'll see you when you're up here next.
Yeah, up in November, middle of
Perfect.
November,
Okay,
I'm
well, I'll
up.
see you in November then. If I'm not down your way, because obviously I do come down there sometimes to see
Yeah,
events down Exeter way. So
yeah. If you're ever down this way, yeah, then let me know.
yeah, definitely, we'll do it. It'd be nice.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Thanks for coming on.
Take care, mate.
And
See you again.
you. Bye
Bye.
bye.
Bye. Bye.